Okay, so what you guys are seeing right now is what the student sees when they log into Time to Track. And Christy, feel free to jump in if I miss something. So this is what the students are going to see. It's going to look just a tad bit different because I've done multiple demos. But when students need to set up their placement, they're going to go to this activities tab, which I think is the first thing that they see when they log in. And then they're going to click on add a new activity. There should be instructions. Tell me if I'm wrong, Liz, if you've had a chance to look, but there should be instructions on how to set up their Time to Track account in their practicum shell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there should be an authorization key in there, but I did send it to them yesterday as well. So they use that key code when they're setting up their account, and that gives them like a full year. So once they do all that, then they go in here and they'll say add a new activity. Theirs will have like a ribbon up here, I don't know, yellow or orange ribbon maybe, that says add a new placement. So they'll just click on that, or they can do it here like I'm going to do. I don't have that ribbon anymore since I've done this multiple times. So what they're going to do is they're going to need to add a placement. And this will pop up, and this is all the boxes that they need to fill in that I was just kind of going over with you guys. So they are master level. They'll choose their course. So for you, Liz, it'll be 514. And then for you, Jeff, it should be 655. So they'll go ahead and choose their course. They'll go in and find their training site. So if a student has submitted all of their paperwork and it's been approved, then their training site's in here. So hopefully every student will have a training site in here by Monday. We do have some stragglers that we're working with still, but we will have gone in if it's been approved, and we will have added their training site. So as you can see, there's several sites in here. So they'll just scroll through and look for their site. And if they have 2 sites, they'll set up 2 different placements. So I'm just going to click on, I have a demo one in here somewhere. And then they'll choose their term. So it's already been entered for them, fall 2019. And then they'll choose their faculty. So you guys are all in here, and they'll find their faculty member, and they will choose that person. And then they will choose their supervisor. So their supervisors are entered based on their training site. So the supervisors that pop up will only be supervisors that are associated with that site.
So Jeff, for your students, some students are continuing with the same site and the same supervisor, so they can count these hours between this dead week between summer and fall, and they're going to count them under fall. So even though the term says 8/26/19, for your students, it's okay to count it. Now, Liz, for your students, they cannot count it because they have not seen you yet, but for Jeff, they can.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Christy, we might need to go in and adjust the dates for those internship students.
Okay.
So that it reflects this week for them.
Okay.
So then once they put all that in, they'll just save it. I created this placement yesterday already when I was doing a demo, so that's why it's not letting me do it. So they'll save it. I've already created it. And then what they're going to do is every time they log hours now, by adding a new activity, they will log under this placement. So they'll go in to add a new activity anytime they're doing anything at their site, or, you know, if they're doing indirect hours outside of their site, that's fine too. They're just going to go in here and add the activity. So I'm going to put the date for next week, so it lines up with the placement. So their placement should auto-populate here, but if it doesn't, they'll just click this drop-down box and then they'll choose their placement. Like I said, if they have 2 sites, they'll have 2 placements listed here once they've created them. And then they'll just make sure these boxes with the asterisks are all filled in. So activity type is going to be what they've done, what it is that they're logging. And so they're already preloaded in here for them, separated by indirect and direct and supervision. So for example, one thing that I shared with students in their email, the practicum students at least, in their email yesterday, was how they need to log supervision hours and class time. So I'll do that so you guys can see this, because this is something we're asking them to do very specifically. So when they do their supervision hours, which is with their site supervisor on site, we want them to log it as site individual supervision. That is their one-on-one supervision. That's also if they're doing triadic supervision. So remember, we allow them to count triadic supervision, which is the 1 supervisor and 2 students. That does meet their individual supervision requirement. Either way, whether it's triadic or just a one-on-one, they're going to log it as site individual supervision. That's really important, because when Christy's looking at hours and when we're auditing them for graduation, we're going to be looking, do they have 14 hours a semester of site individual supervision? So if they log it incorrectly, it's going to look like they don't have their hours done. So they'll just choose that, and then they'll come to this hours portion and they'll just select, you know, I did 1 hour, and then they can add, and then I'm going to add and enter another one. Okay, now let's just say they had a class with you, and so they need to log that, you know, hour and a half class time. They should log that every week, because that's indirect hours that they can get. Some students, for whatever reason, don't log it. I don't know if they forget or they just don't think about it. So it's hours they're going to be missing if they don't log it. So for that, we're asking them to log it as university group supervision. So just click on that, and that should be an hour and a half every week. So they'll add that. And then, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If they log that as reoccurring, because some students know, hey, I have practicum every Monday from 6 to 7:30. So if they log it as reoccurring, they still need to confirm it, because just because they log it, it doesn't mean they went. Or if they log, like they always have a client on Monday at 4, they can put that reoccurring, but they have to confirm that the client actually showed up for those to count.
And then you can just see here, like they have these different options for like indirect, and then for their direct hours. So if they do like an individual counseling hour, or if they do a group counseling hour, you know, they'll be able to log it however it matches what they're doing. They can use this function if they want. It's not required, but if they want to code their clients, they can do that. Just log it that way. So it looks a little funky right now because mine are still showing up as scheduled, because I did them during like the fall semester time. So it's showing up for the 26th as scheduled. So that's kind of one of those things Christy is talking about. So that's how they log their hours. Once they log hours, only they can see them. So their supervisor and you as faculty can't see them yet. They actually have to submit them for approval. So there's like a little bit of a process for them. They log the activity, then they submit for approval. So to do that, they just go to their approvals tab. And if they have hours that are sitting there that haven't been approved, they're going to show up right here. So it looks like I have 3 unsubmitted hours just like sitting there. So I can just submit those hours for approval. And I can like check them here. Mine are just all funky because of all the different demos that I've done. So I have multiple placements sitting here. But I can just check the ones that I want to submit, and then I can send those off for approval. Students will be able to see, okay, did you guys see I just got an email? Mm-hmm. That's what's going to happen is once the student submits it, their supervisor is going to get an email notification that there's something to be approved. So students can kind of come down here and they can be keeping track of these hours. They'll be able to see, so here's the one that I just submitted for approval. The status shows that it's just been submitted, but you'll see right underneath it, I have hours that I sent over for approval. They've been approved. That's what they show. That means the supervisor approved it. And then they have this yellow box that says verified. That means the faculty has verified it. So that's what you guys are going to be doing. and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But they can kind of keep track of what's happening to their hours. You know, you'll see down here, some of these hours were rejected. So if a supervisor rejects them for whatever reason, the student will see that. So it's just kind of a way for students to keep track of what's happening to those. And then students have all sorts of other different functions that they can do on their account that you don't have, but they can like do reports and assessments and things like that. They also have this forms tab. Jeff, your students will all have it, and Liz, yours don't have it yet. Once, excuse me, once a form is sent and it's generated through Time to Track, that's when that like tab shows up. So the first time it'll show up for your practicum students is like right before mid-semester, because Christy will be sending out the mid-semester CCSR form to all the supervisors. So we use Time to Track to submit those forms. So, you know, a couple weeks before mid-semester, we send those CCSR forms to the supervisors. They fill them out here in Time to Track, and then they submit it. Then the student sees it. And they will review it with the student. There's a place for them to electronically sign it. I'll show you a form here in a second. And you can see everything. So I'll show you on your view here in a minute what you can see. You can see all this happening, which is really nice. And then we send forms out at the end of semester as well. So they have a CCSR form at the end of semester, and then students have a supervisor evaluation and a site evaluation form. So those all go out through Time to Track. Again, that's one of the reasons why the placement's really important, because if the placement's not set up correctly, then they're not going to get their forms, because they only go out based on placements. So students will have that function as soon as they have forms in their account. Do you guys have questions about student views, kind of what they're looking at and what they're doing in Time to Track?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Let me switch over to a faculty view. The faculty and supervisor view looks really similar. So this should be kind of what your guys' view looks like in Time to Track. As your students are setting up their placement, they will start to populate down here. If your students haven't set up any placements with you on them, then you won't have any students show up here yet. But once they start doing that, they should populate down here. So, you know, next week you guys can kind of be watching and just making sure your students are showing up. And if they're not, you might check in with them just to see if they set up the placement and if they did it correctly.
Hey, Jessica, when I registered, I didn't see an option where I was registering like as faculty. It just had me register as like a supervisor.
And you did it just through like the email that you got from Time to Track?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
yeah.
does your view look like this?
I need to log back in and look. When I first registered and was filling everything out, like I didn't see a place to click where it identified me as like faculty at CCU.
Yeah, so it might not, on your end, it might not distinguish that, but on my end, I gave you a faculty account.
Okay, good deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it had the form where I like could register as an
LPC,
and then like it had where I had to put in my like license number, and then like rolling. I think it was supervisor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When you're on your account, if you're like looking at it and it doesn't seem right, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. But you do show up as faculty on our end. So you guys will just have a couple different functions. So student list, this is nice because you are able to click on the student directly and you're able to view their hours. So we would be asking that you guys would be doing this throughout the semester. We're encouraging students, so you can reinforce this, we're encouraging students to log activities every time they do something. So every time they have an activity to log, they should just log it instead of trying to wait and logging a bunch at one time. We just want them to get in the habit of being, logging those hours. And then we're encouraging supervisors to approve hours weekly. So asking them, and again, you know, you can reinforce this when you send your welcome email to the site supervisor, introducing yourself. Feel free to reinforce this. Ask them, you know, get into time to track weekly. You know, during your supervision time with your student is a great time to log into time to track. You can review the hours with your student at that point and just go ahead and approve them right there. And then that way you guys are able to find a time weekly to get in and look at those hours and verify them. So it's just kind of trying to enforce that behavior so that it doesn't, so that it's not behind, and so the students aren't logging a bunch of hours, you know, week 7 and then having the supervisor approve them all at that point. So trying to enforce that behavior. So what you can be doing then as a faculty member is you can get in here and view the students' hours. So you can go to activity summary. Students have this same view, and you're able to see what the student is logging. And so I'll show you kind of 2 different views. So one, if you just get in here and you don't mess with any of the filters, you can just come down here and just get a kind of a raw view of the students' hours. This is all hours they've logged. They might not be approved. This is just all hours that they've logged. So you can kind of get an idea of their direct hours, indirect, supervision, and total. You know, and if we scroll down even further, it breaks them down even more. So we can look specifically at the site individual supervision hours, which is what Christy and I are looking at, because if they're doing group supervision at their site as well, which is totally fine, they can do that and log those hours for indirect hours. Just the way time to track calculates them, time to track will put them in here under supervision. But we want to make sure that they're getting their 14 hours of site individual supervision as well. So these are some of those things you guys might be looking at. Liz, for you in particular, since these are practicum students, you know, you might be, you know, mid-semester, you're going to kind of want to see where are they at with those direct hours. They need 40 at the end. So you can kind of, you know, be reaching out to students if they're lacking hours. You know, you might want to check up on that. Same with supervision. Jeff, same for you with supervision, just seeing kind of where they're at. You know, mid-semester, they should have about 7 hours of supervision. And your students will be different, Jeff, because most of them, this is their last and final semester. So if we scroll back up, there's these filters, and you can check the approved hours only and filter it out. And then you'll be able to get like a really accurate picture of where they're at. We always tell students, you know, when we're looking at their hours, Christy and I are always filtering approved hours, because those are really the hours that count. Those are the ones that the supervisor has, you know, said yes to. So a lot of times students are like, no, I have all my hours. And you know, we're saying, well, no, you don't, because they're not approved. So if they're not approved, they won't count. So just, again, really enforcing that behavior of getting those hours approved weekly. This is the report students are going to pull at the end of semester and submit to Blackboard. So there's instructions in Blackboard with those end of semester assignments, and it asks them to pull this activity summary. It does ask them to check this approved hours only box, which students always forget to do. It asks them to do that and filter it, because again, those are the only hours that you want to be looking at the end of semester. And then they submit that to their Blackboard shell. You can get in here though and see it at any time. So another thing that you guys can do, and this is where you'll spend a lot of your time, is the approvals tab. So remember, we submitted hours for approval. You'll be able to get in and see what's going on with those hours. So you can see if a site supervisor has approved them yet. Like this hour here at the top is the one that I submitted. You can see that the student submitted it, but it hasn't been approved yet. And then underneath, you can see these have been approved. I've also verified them. Let me go to one. So if you see any that are approved, but they don't have the little verified yet, that means there's something for you to do as a faculty member. So you'll just click on it here. You'll be able to see exactly what it is. So if you go down here to approval history, you'll see like when the student submitted it, when it was approved by the supervisor, you'll see exactly what it is that we're looking at. So this one in particular is just an individual counseling, and it's just 1 hour. Likely you're going to be approving like a chunk of hours at a time, because students will submit, hopefully, you know, a chunk at a time rather than like 1 hour individually every time. So if you'll just be verifying. Most of the time what you're doing is this is just saying, yes, I've looked over this. The supervisor is the one that's saying that they've done it. They're approving it. The only thing that I'm going to ask for you guys to approve, and Christy, this is different. So I just learned this yesterday. Time to track is always changing. And when I was doing the demo yesterday with one of our affiliate faculties, I noticed that faculty members do have the power to approve something. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to click on this. Let's pretend this is university group supervision. This is your class time. You can approve and verify. And so in the past, we've had supervisors approve everything, including class time. But we have had some pushback from supervisors on that, because they are saying, well, how do we know if the student was in class? So you as a faculty member are really the only one that knows if the student was in class. So what we're going to ask for faculty members to do this semester, which this is different. So Jeff, your students might have a harder time with this, but hopefully Liz, yours they won't know anything different, is we're going to ask that they log their university group supervision, their class time, separate, and send that like 1.5 hours over separately. So you can go in as a faculty member and you can just approve and verify that all at once. And then once you do that, it'll show up as approved and verified. Does that make sense? That would be the only thing we'd be asking, that you approve and verify. Everything else you're just going to verify, because everything else they're doing at their site. What
will the student do differently in logging that versus their normal hours?
Yeah, so I'm going to be really honest with your students. I'm not going to, I don't even know if we'll enforce it with your students, because they've done this one way for so long now that I don't want to confuse them. So I think we'll just start this with the practicum students. So you'll just see, Jeff, like you'll see all your students logging everything like normal. You'll see the class time showing up there. You can just go in and verify everything. But kind of from here on out with these new students, these practicum students, we're going to ask them if they will just log their university group supervision and submit that 1.5 hours off for approval separate. That way the faculty member can go in and approve and verify. So this will be the first time we've done that. So I'm sure there'll be some bumps, and I'm sure it won't always work the way we want it to, but I think it would be worth trying. Since that is something that you actually can approve, you would be the only one that would really know if they were in class. Does that make sense, Liz, to you, like just hearing that for the first time?
Yeah, it does. And it seems, I mean, pretty intuitive. So when they go in to submit those university site supervision hours, are they going to select my name from the supervisor category?
Nope, you'll still be the faculty.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll all look the same. They'll log it the same. It would just be really, you know, when we go to that approvals tab as a student, you saw like they can send over a chunk of hours for approval at once, and they can send over one thing at, you know, however they want to do it. Mm-hmm. So I think the way to make this work would be that they would just submit their group supervision hours, their class time, separate. So really, as a faculty member, you guys could try to enforce like, okay, it's the end of class. Everybody, you should just go into your time to track right now and log this 1.5 hours and send it over. Okay. And then I can approve it, you know, tonight or whatever. So it'll be different, and Christy and I will have to figure out maybe a way to try to communicate that to the faculty and have you guys kind of communicate that to the students. I mean, the nice thing about the practicum students is they don't know any different. They've never done any of this yet. So it's something I would like to try now that that's an option for faculty to actually approve and verify.
Will the supervisors still see it?
Yeah, the supervisor would still see it. Yeah, so that's the thing that I'm not sure how it would look, is just that the supervisor could see it and then go in and approve it. So I'm not sure how it'll look. It's just something that we have had pushback from supervisors in the past about, like, well, why would I approve class time? So now that Time to Track is giving us the option for faculty to approve and verify, that's something we could do. So yeah, so Christy and I will figure out a way to try to communicate that to supervisors and faculty, and we'll just kind of go with it and see what happens this semester. So that's approvals. Forms, I'll show you guys what it will look like. So these are placements that we're looking at. These different little sections are different placements. And you'll be able to see, so all of your students should show up down here, like you'll see all of their placements. And you'll know if they have a form based on what's over here on the right-hand side. So if they have a paper icon, that means they have forms attached to their placement. So like I can click on this and it'll expand, and I'll be able to see each form that is attached to this placement. So this is a student placement that's like at the end of their semester, they have all their forms here. So I'm seeing that they had their mid-semester CCSR form sent, their end of semester CCSR, and then their site and site supervisor evaluation forms. So you, as a faculty member, are able to get in here and just see what's going on. We're not asking you to be the one to generate the forms. We'll do that still, but you do have the opportunity to like resend them if a site supervisor contacts you and says, my student told me I need to fill out the CCSR form, but I don't see it in my Time to Track account. Well, you could get in here and you could see, well, I see it sitting there. It was sent, but I'm going to resend it to you. So you should get a notification. A lot of times what happens, I've noticed, is like site supervisors, they think, well, I don't have anything because I never got an email from Time to Track. But they probably did, and they probably just like disregarded it because they're probably getting tons of emails. So I'm always telling site supervisors, just log into Time to Track on your own. Don't rely on those email notifications because they probably have it sitting there and they just don't realize it. But you can always resend it if they're saying they don't have it. And then you can view it. You can like see what's going on. This status will change as things are being done with the form. So once a supervisor, let's say a supervisor fills it out, but they don't submit it yet, it'll show up as in progress. And then once they submit it, it'll say submitted, and the student will now have access to it. And then the student electronically signs it and submits it, and then it should show up as complete. So you can view this form. This is, I know you guys have seen the CCSR, but this is what it looks like in Time to Track. So it's got it's got the two different parts, and then it's got every little section broken up like this where the site supervisor rates them on that scale of 1 to 5. So they'll just go through, fill out this entire thing, and then there's the short answer at the end still, where supervisors can give some feedback. And so they'll fill out all of this as well. And then they will date it and electronically sign it. So you can, like I said, you can get in here, you can see what's going on, you can see what the supervisor is saying. The student's Blackboard shell does instruct them to print these off and to submit them to Blackboard. But you can get in here still and just see what's happening and review the feedback in here if you want to do it that way. Do you guys have questions about the forms? No? Okay. That is really all the functions that you guys have on Time to Track. So again, the biggest thing is you can review students' hours, you have to verify their hours, and then you can review their forms. Okay.
Thank you. This is so
Yeah.
helpful. I remember having to do it on a spreadsheet when I was in grad school.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah, this is, I think it's pretty, I think once students get in there, it becomes pretty user-friendly. It's really just the thing we found while using it, this will be our third group of students using it, is just if they like log something incorrectly or they don't set up their placement correctly, then it just throws everything off. But if we can kind of like get them in the beginning to do those things correctly, then it should be pretty smooth.
Good.
Yeah. So, and we're learning every year, we're learning more and more like what students need to know ahead of time. So hopefully we were able to even address some of those things in the email I sent out to our prac students yesterday.
Awesome.
Good deal.
Cool. Anything you would add, Christy?
No, I think, yeah, I think you covered everything. It's the site supervision and the triadic that, Liz, if that comes up, that would be fabulous, because that's the main thing I saw happening was they were logging the supervision incorrectly. So
Okay.
that's the main thing, yeah. And it's so exciting to have a new group to kind of like set them up to like, this is what you do. This is what you do. That'd be good.
Yeah, and Christy has been in Time to Track all summer and learning the ins and out of it. So she's going to become kind of the Time to Track person and go-to person. So if you have questions about Time to Track, or if students have questions, you can direct them to Christy.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Christy.
Excellent.
Sure.
Very good.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys.